You're listening to the Health and Happiness Podcast with Travis Kemper and
Lauren Maxwell. Each episode, we share easy to implement strategies to improve your health, happiness, and overall quality of life.
Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of success. Ariana Huffington. If that quote sounds familiar to you, you are correct. That was our quote from last week's episode. And if you're here, you know that we decided after filming our interview that we wanted to split it into two parts because it was such a great interview and we ran a little bit longer than we normally do, but we didn't want to cut any of it out. So future Lauren back from the editing room. This is a little bit different than our normal intro because it is just me, but I wanted to give you a little bit of a recap of our interview from part one with Jessie. So we got to interview one of my very best friends, Jessie Chandler, who was basically, I think, came out of the womb wanting to be a firefighter. Definitely when I first met her in high school, she was already working hard towards that goal, and every decision that she made was basically thinking about her future as a firefighter. So in part one of the episode, we get to listen to her journey at 20 years old, or 19 maybe, when she had she lived in New Jersey at this point and was going to school for fire science, but had already applied for her first job as a firefighter. And there's a very rigorous process, as she detailed. And part of this process is a physical test. This is by no means the whole process, but this is the part that she personally felt was her biggest obstacle. So she failed her first physical test. And part one goes into a lot of the emotional processing and the problem solving as she came out of this failure and had to evaluate, is this something I think I can do actually in reality, and how do I go about doing that? So make sure you tune into part one because it was very fascinating. Part two is about to pick up right before her second physical test. So this is 22 months later. She has gone through her whole journey of basically changing her life and putting on about 30 pounds of muscle, and she's about to take her second physical test. So I hope you enjoy the second half of this interview. It was so fascinating to hear Jessie's story, even though I've lived life with her and knew most of it. I think I could talk to her for hours about her journey. So without further ado, let's continue with the interview.
so now you're 22-ish and you graduated college. You got the dream job, the job of your dreams. How did it go from there? Was it actually the job of your dreams? It sounds like you're pursuing more things in firefighting, so I'm guessing kind of, at least.
Yes.
But yeah, so where did you go from there? How do you continue to approach training, things like that?
Perfect. Yeah. So it absolutely is the job of my dreams. It was not easy. I always joke. So I help people mentor people that are trying to get hired. Again, people take years and years. But I tell them, I say, listen, I've been through every step that you've gone through. Trying to get hired in the fire department, you're like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. Right? You're like, I have to do all these tests and I have to train all this stuff. And then you're going to get hired and then you're going to go to the academy. And that's going to be the hardest thing that you've ever done. They're going to work you to the bone. You're going to be in your turnouts every single day. It's hot, it's sweaty, it's hard. It's going to be the hardest thing you ever did. And then you graduate from the academy. And then you're a new firefighter learning how to be a firefighter. And it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. And then you're going to get over that. And then you're going to try and promote and you're going to do it all over again. So for me, it absolutely is the job of my dreams. It's the best job in the world. I love it. I ended up going to paramedic school last year. I got selected for that. I graduated top of my class, which was cool. So now and then around the same time, I tested for the engineer position, which is what we call our drivers. So it's a remoted position. You're the second in command of the 4-person fire truck behind the captain. You drive the vehicle, operate it, do maintenance, and then we pump the hoses. So we have a pump in our fire truck, and that's kind of my job. So I'm the first and only female in my department to ever promote to that position, which was pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that felt really good, and it's been it's been a good journey. And training wise, like I said, I approach my training with job specificity. First and foremost, obviously you have to do stuff that you find to be fun. I like lifting heavy, and that's important for me to keep my weight on and stuff like that. I like doing that kind of stuff, but I have to work out in my turnouts. I have to carry, odd loads in weird positions and do stuff like that frequently to stay good at my job and then maintain the respect that the guys have for me as being a stud. Which is just as important, honestly, in your work performance is how your coworkers see you, and if they respect you, and if they see you as an asset to the crew is just as important as anything. So
You're
that's
leading
how
by
I
example.
absolutely, yeah, that's how I approach my training. And anytime guys want to work out and we want to work out together, I just go and kick their asses, and we high five at the end, and we build camaraderie, and it's really good. So it's my training's focused on keeping the weight on, keeping the strength up, and then just being comfortable working in my gear.
So where to next? Because I think you had mentioned, I don't remember if we were recording or if this was before, but now you're doing Wildland, which I'm guessing is not in Scottsdale.
Well, we do have so in Scottsdale we have 180 square miles, and about half of that is actually desert. You just don't know it.
Oh, okay.
So we actually have a whole wildland team that trains, and our whole department is trained in wildland on a minor level when we have fires like that. We have brush fires, but we have a whole team that I'm a part of that deploys out to Montana and California and Wyoming and stuff when they need firefighters out there, plus to protect our own backyard, because we have that whole preserve with all the mountains, this McDowell Mountain Storm Preserve. So that's our job, to keep it protected, and that's part of our gig. So it's just another avenue of what we do.
So you're pretty much staying put then. You're just learning as much as you can in Scottsdale, it sounds like.
Yep. So so the way it works is once you get hired by a department, that's it. You don't go anywhere. There's no laterals. You don't leave. You're basically married to it. You have to work for 25 years to get your pension. So that's signing on the dotted line for that department is like a marriage. You're there for 25 years and you can retire minimum. So that's, like I said, maybe the Yuma thing was a blessing in disguise. I'm much happier living closer to my family, and living in the valley is good. It all worked out, and I have a lot more opportunities where I am than I would have before. So
I went to Yuma for a job that I had before PT school, and I can honestly say there is no way that I would live there. I had a neighbor though in Flagstaff that he had a house in Yuma, and his dream was to move down there from Flagstaff. So
Each his
Each their
own.
own.
yeah, wouldn't work for me, but hey, he loved it, and he's a great guy. So I guess there's something good about it. Anyway, so I think our last episode, or the one before, we had talked about morning routines. So my question for you here is, do you have a morning routine? And if not, what does your day look like? How do you schedule your day to keep on track, to make sure that you don't fall back to where you can't do, well, basically, if you can't do your test, you can't do the job.
Yes.
So how do you keep yourself on track with your professional goals as well as with any other goals that you are working towards?
So our schedule, we work 24-hour shifts, and then we have 24-hour blocks in between, basically. And one of the best parts about my job is that we are allowed and encouraged and basically required to train and work out while at work, because I'm there for a whole day. So I would lose that day of training. So part of our day, along with all the responsibilities that we have to do regarding the truck and the equipment and training and stuff, and obviously running calls, that's our job. But we are basically mandated 90 minutes of PT time a day, wherever we can fit it in between calls and doing everything else. So most of our stations have gyms, and that's one of the best parts about my job. I get paid to work out and hang out with my friends and help people. So that's awesome. But so when I'm on shift, if at all possible, sometimes it's not, but I always work out at work, and that's when I do my stuff in all my gear, right? That's when I force myself to go outside when it's hot and uncomfortable and work out in my gear. the next morning when I wake up and get ready to go home, right? So we work for 24 hours to get off at 8 in the morning. I get up at 5, I set my alarm, and I go in the gym when everybody else is asleep, and I do my weightlifting, cardio, whatever I feel like I'm going to do that day. I focus a lot on, I do a lot of stairs because it's more applicable to the job cardio wise than on a treadmill or anything like that. So I do stairs, I do my lifting, I do all of that in the morning before I have to do my morning chores and routines for work. So I have those 2 days of training set. It's awesome. Nobody bothers me in the morning, and everybody sees me all sweaty when they wake up and they're like, man, you inspire me. And it's always got that conversation like, man, Jess, you're so committed, you're so disciplined, I got to start, it kind of like inspires everybody else. So it's kind of a twofold thing. Plus I really appreciate getting paid to work out instead of doing it on my day off.
Yeah, no kidding.
So depending on how my days go on my days off, I'll either go to the gym or I'll use it as a rest day to recover, catch up on sleep, because we don't sleep at work for the most part. So catch up on things like that. But just working in, I have a training app that I've been following for a couple of years now that's kind of focused on military, first responders, kind of that functional fitness stuff. And it's something that I can do either at my home gym or at the gyms at work. So I alternate my gear training, what I call the necessary work, and the fun stuff. So you got to keep it fun. You got to keep it what you like to do. You can't torture yourself every single time you work out.
So that
right?
it's sustainable.
It's not going to be sustainable, but you got to work it in there because
it's your job.
That's my job. And it's called being a professional. So,
and an adult.
Yeah. And a grown up. Yep. So that's kind of how I approach it. And as far as eating and stuff goes, I eat pretty clean, but I eat a lot. The guys tease me. I'll out eat any 200-pound firefighter in the fire station. And we make big meals. We cook for firemen at work, and I'll out eat any of them any day. So just eating a lot of good stuff, and just trying to get sleep when I can, and keeping the training up. It's easy to motivate when your whole livelihood depends on it.
Yeah.
Right. And not only your livelihood, but honestly your life, that my safety and the safety of all of my friends requires me to be in shape. If I go down in a fire and I become, a hazard to everybody else, that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
So,
that's a huge why behind the goal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Darn it, I had a question. Oh, I know what I want to ask, because this is always so. I've been a home health physical therapist in 3 different states, so I've called you guys multiple times.
I'm sure.
And I don't understand how the hell you guys get 6 people there, an ambulance, a fire truck, and 6 people there within. I don't think it's ever taken more than 8 minutes.
Oh yeah.
No matter
8 minutes
where
would
I'm
be
at.
too long. Yep.
Well, maybe in Scottsdale, but in Cottonwood, and then where am I at now? Glenwood Springs, Colorado.
Where do I live?
Where do I live? Or Silt. It's so fast, and I think 8 minutes is probably an exaggeration. How the heck do you guys get there that fast?
Oh gosh, so it's so funny to explain how our days go to people that don't work this job. So we're at the whim of the bell ring, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So no matter what we're doing, whether training or working out, eating, taking a shower, sleeping, any of that stuff, when those tones go off, we have 60 seconds. There's a timer that goes off to stop whatever it is that we're doing, get in the truck, buckled up, ready to go, and to be out the door. So that's that first minute of, all right, I was eating, mouth, spoon to face. Nope, put it down. Let's go. And then my job as the driver is to know where I'm going based off of the address. So I have my first due, we call our first due, our area memorized, and all the addresses and the different streets and their numbers. And I know where we're going, and I operate the vehicle quickly and safely. And I get our crew there. So when our standard is a 4-minute response time. Obviously that doesn't always happen, but that's our standard. From tones to walking in your front door should be about 4 minutes.
How big is your area?
It depends. Depends on how dense it is. So the area that I've been working in the downtown, Old Town Scottsdale, if there's all the other trucks are in, we're 6 square miles, maybe.
That's still fast.
Lights and sirens.
You can't go 60. I've been in Scottsdale. You can't go 60.
Oh, it's so we're right in the middle of it. So we really go about 3 miles each way.
Still 4 minutes?
Yep.
It's fast.
That's crazy. Yeah, it's
And if
just
it's a
like
fire, we got to put our stuff on too
Yeah.
and do all
Right.
that. So that's part of our lifestyle. It's so funny. I've taken pictures of it before where I work at a big station. There's 10 of us. We all sit at the kitchen table and we eat dinner together, right? Unless we're going on calls, and there's multiple different units, different trucks that are there. And when we get a fire or a big call or whatever, and we're eating and we just drop it and we leave. And then when we come back, it's kind of eerie because you have this kitchen table
that's wild.
that's got all this like half-eaten food and water bottles with the caps off and napkins all like just it's like we just
deserted.
vanished.
Yeah.
Deserted. Yeah, and it's kind of funny. And I tease people that are trying to understand what we do and like the nighttime stuff. I said this is what I need from you. I said I'm gonna take you for 24 hours, and during the day we're going to work out and we're going to do a bunch of reading and we're going to be outside and we're going to work on your car for a little bit and we're going to do some stuff there. And then at night that, oh yeah, we're going to cook, we're going to clean your whole house because we clean. And then at night you can go to sleep, but every hour and a half I'm going to wake you up with one of those air horns and a big red light. You have 60 seconds to get in your car. You got to drive around the block. You got to come back. You got to do a workout, like a real quick, we'll do some burpees or something. We'll solve a puzzle. Then you can go back to sleep. That's what I do for a living and tell me how you feel the next day, because you go from asleep or whatever you're doing to I am driving a fire truck 60 miles an hour, lights and sirens. And then I'm on the roof with a chainsaw cutting a hole, or I'm a paramedic. I'm making life altering decisions, giving medications, electrical therapy, all that kind of stuff. And I was just asleep 3 minutes ago. Oh my gosh. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's
That's
kind of a
best
weird
job in the world.
It takes a very special
Really cool.
person.
I love it. I was built for this. I believe that
You absolutely
with all
were.
my heart, and I love it. I love every second of it. So that's fun.
Well, that's awesome that you still love it after you're doing it. And it's awesome that you knew at 14 and 15. Sometimes I wish that I listened to my 14 or 15-year-old self. I remember when I dropped out of college, I said I was going to open a gym. And now, like, looking at what I do, it's like I could literally do all of this if I owned a gym.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Yeah. And then it's like, wow, you went and got a bachelor's degree in business. You worked in sales doing stuff that you didn't really like, and you knew what you wanted to do way back then. Yeah. So kudos to you for listening to your 14-year-old self.
Couple speed bumps, but we got there.
Yeah. I, on the other hand, if I had listened to myself at 14 and 15, would not be anywhere near here.
No.
I would be an actress.
Okay. Well, you tried
I had
that.
like a very similar like realization. Like I went out and did the thing and then failed. And then I had the exact opposite reaction. Well, not reaction. I still like had to sit back and evaluate, like, is this something I can do? But also, is this something I want to do? And I came out saying, no, that's not.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to completely redo my whole like life up until that point because it did not work out.
I remember that.
Yeah, you were
Here
there
you
for
are.
that. You were there for all of it.
Here you are. You're a doctor.
And now, now I'm
pretty cool.
pretty happy with how it
and you
ended
help
up
people
then.
every day. That's very, and you love
Yeah.
it. You're
Well,
very good at it.
and as long as you decided you didn't want to do it, it's a great
Exactly.
thing to learn.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anyway, Lauren, do you have any more questions about Jessie's journey?
Yeah,
that
I
we
have
didn't
like
cover?
a million, but I also know we've talked for like probably an hour and a half.
You think so?
Ooh,
It's
a
been
while.
much longer than our normal conversations.
But so
Sorry.
fascinating. Like I feel like I could,
Sorry.
I mean, I ask you all these questions all the time, and I'm like 12 years later still ask you all these questions. So it's just fascinating. My biggest, I have two.
Okay.
Well, one is gonna end it. So if you have one before that, ask
Okay,
it.
so
But
go
my
for your
one that's-
first one, then I got
one that's not gonna end it.
Okay.
Did you have any setbacks in those 22 months that you
question.
were moving toward your goal? And if so, how did you keep yourself motivated to keep going? Or was it really just like I crumpled all those doubts in the car and threw, not the car, in the plane and threw them out, and that was the end of that?
So yes. So I wish I could say that the metaphorical crumbling was the end of all of that, but obviously there was some setbacks. So the first thing off the bat was talking to people, and when I was networking a little bit more, I was really diving into, okay, I guess I was ignorant. I didn't really understand what this was about. I thought I did, but I didn't. So I wanted to get more information, and talking to people, they were like, well, in the academy, you need to be able to squat your body weight 20 times, and you need to be able to do 10 pull-ups. I said, if you can do that, then you're going to be okay. So that thought at my 117-pound soccer playing self was incredibly daunting.
Yeah.
I mean, I was so thrown back by that. So figuring out how to get to that point, that was very challenging. So I focused on the pull-ups, I focused on the squats, along with all the specific stuff that we talked about before. I injured my ankle playing soccer that same year. I had previously injured it in high school really bad, and I hadn't had any problems with it until that season, which was another reason like I decided to stop playing, because the risk of injury, and if I have a big injury, I wouldn't be able to do my job. So
Right.
I said it wasn't worth the risk. So that was part of that decision. But I had an ankle injury that set me back quite a bit. I had a really hard time with the pull-ups and not really understanding how to scale them. I figured it out, and now I have literally I'll say I wrote the book on it. I have what I did, and I have it all written down, and I hand it out like candy to people that are working on that kind of stuff. So
That's
now
awesome.
I can hop up and do 10 pull-ups right now, if I wanted to. But that took me probably the full 2 years to be able to do that. To build
Wow.
up to that, and it was just mentally it was difficult. So the injury in the ankle, that was huge. That's when I focused on my pull-ups. To be honest, like, I guess I'll do something else.
Right. Get off the
but,
ankle.
But it was just working through some of that stuff that I was like, oh, this might be impossible. And then it's been a year and I can still do 4. Like, this might be impossible, and getting over that. And then like the dam broke at some point, and it just clicked, and I figured it out. And now that's something that I consistently train, because that's something that I'm first of all very proud of, because that's something I worked really hard on for, and it's something that was pretty rare. And I can walk into a station and blow the guys' minds, like, hey, you want to see me do 10 pull-ups? You can't do 10 pull-ups, and I'll do them, and it's cool. So it's kind of a fun game for me. But that was it. The eating was huge too, just figuring out how to work through. I know I have to eat this much and I have to eat this way, but the cafeteria is only serving pizza today. What am I going to do about it? You know, or something like that. So that was hard too. But once I got it figured out and I was seeing the progress, it's so important to see your progress, right? To keep you motivated. So once I started seeing that, a couple months in, and that was incredibly motivating. That helped a lot.
Yeah, and I imagine you can use that progress anytime you hit like a setback or barrier to remind yourself, okay, I already got here.
Yep.
I didn't come this far to come this far.
Absolutely. Yep.
Keep going.
Yep.
Yeah.
What do you got, sir?
Awesome.
What do you got?
How did you track your progress going through this?
So I used the MyFitnessPal a lot. That was huge for my eating. I swear by that. It took me a while to figure it out, and to figure out how to be accurate with it. I bought a food scale, so I kept that, and I kept it in my backpack. And I was that kid that brought the food scale to the student union and measured my salads or whatever, my meat or whatever I was doing. So
that's amazing.
Just to make sure I was getting enough calories and I was getting them in the right way. So I bought a food scale. I used the MyFitnessPal, and I used for my time. So I told you that I created this little circuit. I timed it. Okay. So I started with the stairs part, which was a thing in itself. Before I could do everything else, I had to conquer the stairs. That took me months alone just to be able to build up to doing stairs for that long at that speed with that weight. So I did that first. I said, okay, so this week I'm going to do at 60 steps a minute. I'm going to do 20 pounds on my back, and I'm going to do it for 3 minutes. And then the next week I did 40 pounds. And then the next week I increased the speed. So I worked up to that. And once I got that and I got that whole circuit down, I would time it. So, okay, if I can do, and I overloaded everything. So I said, if I can do extra work in this gym environment in under that 10 minutes and 20 seconds, then I'm going to be good. So I started out doing it in 20 minutes, and then I did it in 18 minutes, and I did it in 16, and I got to the point where I was doing it in 10 minutes, and that's when I felt really good. So I tracked that, and then just my numbers for my lifts, just trying to build up that muscle and stuff. I never weighed myself. It was never I could tell I was getting bigger and stronger. I didn't need a scale to tell me that.
Yeah.
But I tracked my big lifts, my squat, my bench, my deadlift, and then the pull-ups was a big thing too. So just keeping track of where I was at. And I journal all that stuff. I had a little notebook. I still have it, actually. Nice. I have a notebook that has all my workouts that I did, my times, my numbers, and I kept track of that for that full 2 years. And nice. Now I use an app because it's the 21st century, but I used to do it by hand.
I still do things by hand.
I like it. It's just something about, it's so satisfying to like cross things off a list. That same feeling, physically writing it out. I squatted 255 and I get to write it, circle it, and whatever it is. So
I write it down too.
Yeah, something special about it.
Yeah. All right, Lauren, what else you got?
My last question for you is, what advice would you have for anybody who maybe even not a firefighter or dreaming to be a firefighter, but anybody who's going through this like same kind of transition phase in life where you come up face first into a failure and need to figure out how to get around it?
Good. So I think you said it before when you talked about your career experience, is that you have to decide if you want this and how bad you want it and what you're willing to sacrifice for it. That's step number one. Because people are going to come into situations where you hit failure, and maybe that failure is trying to teach you something that maybe that's not what you're supposed to do, or maybe that's not the path you're supposed to be on. So you really have to take that 6-hour plane ride and really unpack, what do you want? What is your desire level, and what are you willing to do for it? So once you figure that out, and you know, either way, whether it's okay, I'm gonna pivot, right? I'm not gonna be an actress, I'm gonna be a PT, and I'm gonna do that, and that's what I was meant to do. I'm gonna throw myself, I'm gonna repack my whole life. Or I hit failure, I've been doing something wrong for this long, now I have to figure out how to do it right. So once you pick a path, then you have to set those goals. You guys talk about it in your podcast all the time. Goal setting is huge. And it's got to be achievable, and they've got to be realistic, and they've got to be progressive as you go. And if that's something that people struggle with, which I think that they do, I think asking your family and friends is huge about that, because it's hard to unpack your own self sometimes, what you're capable of. But my tool that I used is my roommate, who's still one of my best friends in the world. She was a volunteer firefighter and is like one of the strongest physically and emotionally people I've ever met. And she was kind of in the same path, trying to get hired as a firefighter. So I used her as a like sounding board. Hey, do you think I can do this in this amount of time, or should I scale it back? Should I shoot for 6 pull-ups in 2 months, or should I go for 2? Or, you know, so I used somebody that I felt was an equal, was a peer, and was somebody that I trusted and respected me, to help me set those goals and push me towards them without letting me get too ahead of myself. So that was huge too. I think using your support system and using your friends as not only accountability, but as like some positive energy, I think that's huge too.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Surround yourself with people that believe in you, and surround yourself with people that are going to be honest with you and aren't just going to blow smoke. You know?
Yeah, that honesty part is a really big piece too, for
huge.
Sure. Honest with yourself and honest with your friends.
Yeah, huge.
Well, Jessie, this was awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
This was fun.
This was fun.
Thanks. If anybody wants to reach out to you, do you want to give an email or a social media tag or something?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really do a whole lot of social media, but email for sure. JESSIE2011@gmail.com.
We'll put that in the description.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the show notes, yes.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, we really appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah, this was great.
This was
Thanks,
awesome.
guys.
Thank you. All right. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of success. Ariana Huffington. So how's it going, Travis?
Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to listen to this episode of the Health and Happiness Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode and are getting benefits from our content.
If your life is improving in part due to the information in this podcast, we would greatly appreciate you sharing the episode with your family and friends on social media and leaving us a review so we can continue to reach more people and improve the health and happiness of the community at large.
Thanks again, and we will see you next week for another episode of the Health and Happiness Podcast.